How are you doing? You ready for the 2-hour lecture on recovery? Guys, I'm from Derry and I don't get up this far very often, so I'm going to take full advantage of it. Firstly, thanks for the invite, Paul and Damien. It's a pleasure to be able to come up and just share a little bit about the work that we're doing in Derry / Londonderry. Give you a bit of an idea of my background as an individual and my organisational background and the work that we're doing. We're seeing some really good things. We're really passionate advocates for recovery and we work in that space. But it's great to share the room with so many different organisations and different backgrounds, okay? So, who am I? Just to get started, I had a really great introduction, so thanks for doing that. Okay, so first and foremost, founder of Arc Fitness. I'm a registered mental health nurse. I registered in 2015 and I worked in the Western Trust. I worked in crisis care, acute male inpatient settings. I then went on to work in the addiction service in Woodley House for 2 years. So I know a little bit about mental health, I know a little bit about addiction, and I was lucky enough because of the work that I was doing to be nominated for the Nurse of the Year, which was a massive accolade and a massive personal achievement to be recognised for the work that I do amongst my peers. I'm also a personal trainer. You'll usually only see me in a hat and a pair of shorts, so this is really new for me. I'm taking full advantage, okay? And I'm also a husband and a father, okay? So I'm a lot of different things. When you meet me today, this is what people tend to normally see. The last part, and I always leave it last whenever I'm doing the introductions, I'm 12 years, clean, sober, whatever terminology you want to use from drug and alcohol addiction. Thank you. Thank you. And that's not for the applause, but I'll accept that. And the reason I leave that at the end is because unfortunately, we kind of come from a society that judges us on our challenges, on our difficulties, and on our mistakes. And we label people, and we see people with addiction, we see people with issues, and we tend to think, well, that's them. So the reason that comes last is because I am much more than an individual who struggles with substance use. I'm a lot more than that. That fundamentally drives the work that we do outside of the recovery work, the stigma, the discrimination work. Because we need to see past the problem. We need to see people. Because people who are struggling aren't problems, they're people struggling with a problem. And we need to approach that a little bit differently, I think, to make a big dent in this. So that's who I am. Very quickly, the 2 black bags in this picture represent life in 2009. I moved back to Derry with 2 black bags of clothes. The 3 pictures, don't laugh at the fashion sense, are in different residential treatment centres. I started my whole journey with drug and alcohol addiction really young, and it was destructive and it was problematic. It didn't come from acute trauma. I was anxious, I was worried, I was nervous. As a kid, I wasn't always 6'2". I used to be quite heavy, I was bullied at school, and I carried all of the insecurities into my adult life. But drugs and alcohol were something that I found soothed that. And that became problematic for me. As my life continued, I made poor choices. I made difficult decisions, I made bad decisions, I hurt people as a result of my substance use. So my experience of opiate use, alcohol use, prescription medication use was not positive. I don't really sell it for people, it was nothing but destructive. And that's my experience in 2009. 2023, however, is a very different story. And the reason these 2 slides are up is because this shows hope, this shows possibility, and this one shows potential. Because whenever I accessed the right help, the right time, by the right service, and I got the support that I needed, life changed. I was able to go back and achieve my nursing qualification. I was able to go back and get married and have children and start an organisation. Because recovery is possible, and we have to believe that people can and do recover. We have no right to write someone off, to believe that somebody is hopeless, that someone will never change. That's why we do the work that we do. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that we do. So, let me talk to you about Arc Fitness. Arc Fitness is like my second child, okay? I love it just as much, or maybe just a little bit less, okay? We are 4 years old as an organisation. It's a not-for-profit, community-based organisation that sits in the community and voluntary sector, okay? It was set up based on my experience of the power of physical activity in my recovery. I always wanted to try and find a way to use physical activity, nursing experience, professional therapeutic interventions to help and support people who are struggling with substance use. So that's what we did. Fundamentally, we provide support to individuals who are struggling or who are negatively impacted by substance use. It could be an individual, be a family member, be an employer, could be a school. Okay, so that's what we fundamentally do. We're core funded by the National Lottery. Okay, we don't have government funding. No pressure, table number 1. Yet, we set up our organisation, the Drug and Alcohol Strategy, went out for consultation, so it was a time thing. But we're working hard on it. Okay, and what we do is we utilise physical activity as a treatment methodology, as a fundamental unique selling point to strengthen, rehabilitate, educate and support people who are struggling with addiction. We provide a safe and a sober recovery community that's built on lived experience. You'll hear me use the word lived experience a lot, okay? Half of our organisational workforce have got lived experience. This is so important, and we've heard it a few times about the importance of lived experience because they're the experts. That's why we do what we do. So we create this environment for people to come in and get well, get surrounded by community, and start to change their lives. The timeline, super fast, okay? My feet haven't touched the ground in the last 4 years. So this was set up as a Facebook page. It was a signposting service. I worked as a nurse. I thought, I always did this in my own social media and always had a real recovery focus. And then I set up the Facebook page. Within 2 weeks, people were trying to refer people to me. I was like, what is happening here? So not that long after, we realised that there was something on this. We ran a pilot program. We didn't have a premises. I didn't have a gym. So a local commercial gym allowed us to use their space. We advertised for 6 people and we ran a pilot in conjunction with Queen's University. We researched it, we published the results. By the end of the 6-week program that we had started, we had just got our first premises. It was like Christmas, like kid with a new toy. There was a room, you could maybe fit 8 people, and I thought, this is it. This is where it's all going to happen now. And then COVID came, all right? And I know COVID was really difficult for a lot of people, but it actually allowed us to provide more. We took everything online. Because I was working at the time, we went from having 2 sessions a week. We were able to deliver online physical activity sessions 5 days a week. We were able to have 2 check-ins for people instead of 1. We were able to do more. So eventually, the National Lottery funded us. After periods of small amounts of funding, we now had 2 full-time staff. There was me and my good friend, our operational manager, Max Campbell, and we worked extremely hard for 2 years to get to where we've got to. We then moved into our shake and dark facility. Remember that, those 8 people that you could train? We had a waiting list of 200 people. Something had to change. So we moved into a premises that was about 10 times the space that we run. 2 floors, we could do a lot more. And in September 23, we were refunded again. Sorry, we have been refunded again. We now have 6 full-time members of staff. We have a team of 14. And we are running more programs than we ever thought that we would possibly run. And that's really good. But the downside to that is there's a demand that's driving that, which is not so good. Okay? I mentioned lived experience before. Out of those team of 14, half of those individuals have lived experience. They've either done the program or they have extensive periods of recovery under their belt. So that's where we currently are today. So it's been a really fast 4 years, but hey, here we are. And I could talk about it all day. We're very media driven. If anybody has seen our stuff or has followed us, we communicate really heavily through video, media and all of those channels. I want to just take us a short bit, it's 2 minutes, just to give an overview of some of the things that we do. Sometimes this does it better than I do, okay? So hopefully this works.
Something that she accepted along the range and read it, that's like the part that all. Then in the police, that is stop and act for them. That negative act of self-insidious the same and raise that thankful bar society. Not that. He, the other end, roll up homes, ball on, take help. By very picture, causes when and then the nation that I believe and devices of brought their family from society and called divorce we stay with it, like if we call it the show. Only that I have a recovery and put doing the systems and we direct that people. Or
Our but this is an example from the work and the speaking theory about the skating. We support individuals and family members to be negative rate and active themselves in solutions.
so our good to you think you see we words the physical to single and about the I'll was like Russia of the there all the thing my talk. Sure, type them just communities.
And that community has well become the
This is sad. Seems
finger. Like main provided them a radio show professional, fully split as well as I did there at the here at it.
with a right day to game. Budgeting. File for. You did what?
All way at episode and step in the other day. We use something like affinity because of its sleeping and I help them to breathe. Archaeological railway and environment does that be and how them breathe step to stay with how with anxiety it free village
And that more activity. So player.
at art we still get something people manage recovery. We want that to be the employers taking control of their identity, right? And
More than anything. Art, knowledge.
So we do a lot for a small organisation that's only been on the road for 4 years, and we have so many aspirations to help so many people in the future. And some of the things that make us, I suppose, unique and different is, well, we're the only UK organisation that fundamentally uses fitness as a treatment option for people who struggle with substance use disorder. I firmly believe that we need to set people on a strong foundation whenever they're trying to tackle the difficult stuff, and that's what we do. Our team, as I mentioned before, half of our team have got lived experience, but also we have 3 mental health nurses, we have trained therapists and counsellors, we have dynamic running therapists in there, we have peer support workers. So the skill set that we have within our team is impressive, to say the least. We can wrap around people, we can provide mental health support as well as the addiction support. And I know they shouldn't be separated, but our services unfortunately do this at times. We can provide the support that people need when they're with us. When we talk about community, we talk about the long-term implications of substance use over a period of time. And sometimes people do really well, sometimes people fall, sometimes things happen, but we can provide the support for people long-term for that to happen. The facility is something that's really different. You don't expect to go in to speak to somebody about your substance use issue and walk into a gym. It looks like a gym, it smells like a gym, it sounds like a gym, but it's inviting, it's open, it's warm, it's welcoming. Okay, it's not intimidating. But above our gym, we have all our therapeutic rooms, we have our counselling rooms and our therapy rooms and all that sort of stuff. So the facility also allows us to run community events, allows us to have social events, allows us to build a community and have a space for community, for people in recovery to come together and support each other. We have the only dynamic running therapist in Northern Ireland who also happens to be 13 years sober, which is amazing. We do addiction recovery coaching. We've trained our team to be professionally accredited addiction recovery coaches through the Recovery Coach Academy in the UK. So when we think about the treatment for addiction and we think about going to see an addiction nurse therapist in the community, not everybody needs that level of support. So we're able to provide a different level of support for people. Family support programs are something that we introduced over 2 years ago, and they're one of the best things that we've possibly done. We have over 100 families currently engaged in our service that access our 6-week family support programs, but then get ongoing aftercare support after that. We do workshops, education campaigns. If you follow us on social media, you'll see a lot of that stuff. We also do corporate services. We do this because we have to stay around and eat, okay? So we provide corporate services because the reality is we can generate income as a social enterprise. So we do quite a lot. And we're really proud about the work that we do. And we could do more if funding was accessible. And I suppose why physical activity, and I've told you my reason why physical activity is really important. And I'm not going into this, but guys, we've been studying the importance of physical activity for mental health addiction since 1981. I was born then, so it's 42 years. So we've known that it's possible, we've known that it's good. That's why we use it. We use it because it helps support people. When you remove the addiction, when you remove the substance, when you remove the time that is taken, you need to incorporate something positive in there. Exercise fills that void. We know all the physical benefits of exercise, the weight loss, cardiovascular health, we know all that. We have people that have come in to us over years of long-term use and their mobility issues, okay, they haven't been looking after themselves, they've been malnourished for a long period of time, they haven't been moving. We're able to start that process of getting people healthy again. But the mental and the emotional benefits of engaging in the program are phenomenal. Self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. I've never met people struggling with substance use that are abundant in these things. We're starting to give this back to people. Serotonin, dopamine, all the good stuff that comes from physical activity. There's loads of reasons why physical activity can be used as an intervention, and we've been doing it for years. Art Fitness have just put it in a box and formalised it and provided it in a service specifically for people. And it's not just exercise. So we don't just get people in to take part in a program. Here's your 2 days training and here's this and that's that. We educate as well, because education is really important. So we help people understand addiction. What causes addiction? Why do people become dependent? How does it impact our mental health? How do we deal with triggers? How do we deal with cravings? How do we live sober? How do we do all these different things? So the education piece around this is also really important. So outside our program, we also educate people as they go through as well. We talk about effectiveness because in our day and age, we have to prove that what we do works. That's the reality of things today. And I think if I hadn't have done my nursing degree, then I wouldn't have been as proficient in this as I am. I realised that I needed to be more than just my opinion, because we all have those. It needed to be shown that this works. So we connected really early on with Queen's University. So we published the research based on the pilot group, and we've continued that on for the last 4 years. We are now engaged with 3 different universities. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to inform, we're trying to provide more research, we're trying to increase the research base for recovery communities. It's in our strategies, recovery in the community, but let's prove that this thing is working. And we've managed to do that. So we measure everything that we do. So everybody that goes through our program, we have 4 fundamental key indicators: mood, anxiety, sleep, and the substance use recovery evaluators. They're the 4 things that we use, okay? And they all improve over time. So through the 6 weeks, we get people to self-score before they start, in the middle and at the end, and there's improvements throughout, okay? The reason there's little green ticks, if you can see it from the back, is because the research would say that there's clinical and statistical improvements. So you can't really argue with that. So people are getting benefit from engaging in the programs, and that's really important. But what's not in here is what we see all the time. We see people get their kids back. We see people return to education. We see people return to employment. We see all of those things, engage in community, forge friendships, start to see self-worth in themselves. That stuff is unbelievable to see on a daily basis. And sometimes the research can't capture that and doesn't capture that. But we see that. We see the possibility that comes when people come together with the right help and the right support. Stigma and addiction, guys, is something I can talk to you until the cows come home. It's one of the biggest barriers that we face in this whole thing. We need to work exceptionally hard to create a society out there that's fluent in understanding addiction and understanding recovery. Because I have never met an individual who thought it would be a great idea to be stuck in that hole at all. That wasn't my choice. We need to recognise that addiction is caused by so many other things. And we need to treat people like people and not like problems, like I mentioned before. Every year we run a campaign. 2001 it was the No Shame campaign. 2002 it was the Motion Changes Emotion campaign. And this year it was the More Than That campaign. Because the public need to understand and not be afraid of addiction. Because what we do and what we've always done when we don't know something and we're afraid of it, we push it to the outskirts of society because I don't want that near me until it lands at your door. So this is something that we need to work really hard on, and it's good to see it again made on the strategies and all of the outcomes and stuff, because we need to work really hard. We were lucky enough to partner with some excellent organisations. Northlands was just in the room there this year. This year and the previous 2 years we've ran a recovery walk, okay? Recovery's been hidden for so long, behind doors and all of these things, and we've literally brought it to the streets. This year we had about 650 individuals come to Derry/Londonderry and walk. We closed off the roads in a visible view of recovery. And we need to start doing that. We need to see more recovering communities. We need to see more people sharing their stories, normalising that this thing happens to many people, but people can change and come out the back of it. So important. And I know loads of people do a lot of great work, but this is really important, because the biggest thing that stops people coming in is fear. I'm afraid. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? That fear and negative judgment. And I suppose we're here today, and I think everybody has their areas of expertise and their areas of work, and they all fit in the spectrum of different places. But we're all here because we want to see change. We want it to be different. We want to help not be the second highest European country that has the death rates that we have. We want to do better. And I think what we need to change, there's a few things we need to maybe look at moving forward, okay? And I'm sure if you're a politician or your local government, you're sick of hearing about this, but it's the reality, okay? We need to adequately fund services. We need to adequately fund addiction support treatment, addiction recovery treatment, not just OST and subject prescribing, the whole thing. We need to look at this and fund the whole thing appropriately, okay? Whether that is, quick access to detox services, quick access to residential and therapeutic interventions, quick access to community-based recovery programs, post-treatment. We need to look at all of this. Is it costing us $1 billion per year? Maybe we need to use some of that and think, well, maybe we need to allocate that differently. Also, I've put down here, appreciate and utilise lived experience. I told you I would use this quite a lot, okay? Lived experience deserves a seat at the table. 100%. It needs a seat at the table in decision making, research, policy, service delivery. It shouldn't be tokenistic. Didn't he do well? He's doing really well. Look, it's not about that. We are the experts. We understand how we got there. We understand how we need to move forward. We need to utilise lived experience. And if anybody is here today and you have an experience of addiction or you have an experience of recovery, you have to use that to help and support other people. You might be the only hope that person sees. That's why it's important. However, I think back to my starting point in ARC. I think back to the voice that was in my head. Who's going to listen to you? How can you stand up and talk to somebody with your experience? So there's your man used to drink Buckfast and Guild Hall Square. But you have to see past yourself. And you have to use your experience to benefit other people. Lived experience is a valuable resource. Okay, and it must be used to help others and to change their communities. We've also heard this today. We need to collaborate better, 100%. We need to respect and we need to work with other organisations, irrelevant to where they are on the spectrum, whether they're in treatment, whether they're in recovery, whether they're in harm reduction. Hey, there's many roads to Belfast. I could have come by bus or by train or by car or walked. It's irrelevant I got here. So we need to respect and collaborate with other organisations that are out there. Because if the vision and the value is to help and support people get better, and we're all in the same thing together. And we also need to work hard, and I've talked about this now, we need to work hard to create that fluent society that's based on knowledge, that's based on information and education. There is no place for stigma or discrimination. We need to see more visible communities of recovery. This is my niche. So I'll talk about recovery all the time. We need to see more of it, because there's more of it out there. People are just afraid to stand up and admit that. But we need to see it around the province, not just in Derry and not just in pockets throughout the rest of the province, okay? We hope better whenever we have other people around us, okay? And finally, what's the why? What is the why? I know why I do what I do. Everybody in this room has a reason why they do what they do. I don't think anybody goes to work in the addiction field if they don't have something that drives them. But we still have a lot of work to do. and a lot of the people that I have met in the community involved, they say they're this working with addiction, are so passionate, are so empathetic, are so determined, but they're flipping tired. They're exhausted, okay? They're tired with lack of funding, lack of direction, tired of not being able to meet the current demands that are being placed on us today by the increasing nature of substance use and dependency. Having access to the right treatment at the right time by the right service should not be an aspiration, should be the norm, should be what we're striving for. But that requires a level of cohesion and a functioning government. And we have a bit of work to do. So, as a society, we need to do better. And I think events like this are really important because they give voice to people who sometimes don't have a voice. And I think we always need to be on the same hymn sheet when we're talking about this, okay? Because we've tried it for a long time. It's clearly not working. So something needs to change. We need to be a little bit different. And that little quote, if you have the power to make somebody happy, do it, because the world needs more of that, okay? Addiction, people with addiction, people in recovery, don't need to be chastised or patted in the head or feared. We just need help and support sometimes. And we all have the capacity to be able to do that in whatever walk of life that we're coming from. So, I'm going to give the opportunity to ask some questions if you want. If not, it's all right, Sue. But thank you for your time.